You know, our Constitution is the most important national document that we've got, especially for patriots. And it's kind of ironic that even though it's so important, there's very little training about it. Even officials like police and lawyers receive little or no training on it. You can pass the bar without getting educated on our Constitution. When I found out, I was amazed. But when you've got a channel called What They Don't Say, our Constitution is prime for a few episodes because there's so much that isn't said about our Constitution, and so much of what is said is lies. That's why it's important that our families know. That's why it's important that we teach our kids. But where do you even start? Our kids have to know. They're going to need it to defend the nation in their own time. We've already seen the challenges that can come up. Imagine what they're going to face. Our kids and grandkids, they need this. We're the best source of it. If you want them to have a knowledge that they can trust, you're not worried about them getting indoctrinated by someone else, tell them yourself. That's what I'm going to provide you with, is a lot of things that you can talk to them about. Because the truth is, if you don't know when you're being lied to. You don't know when governments overstep their authority. You don't know when your rights are being violated unless you know something about the Constitution. But the problem is, most of the talk about our Constitution and knowing it, you got a bunch of geeks that run off into the weeds. Forget all that. It's not a big, complicated deal. Constitutional law, that's something else. That's where the lawyers get in and play with it and try to fool around so they can cut angles and deals, blah, blah. A lot of that stuff gets overturned. But the truth is, the Constitution itself is just a skinny little book. It's only got 7 chapters, 7 little articles. That's all it is. The whole thing fits in a skinny little pamphlet. It's kind of funny. They passed a budget bill and it's 1,500 pages. They passed Obamacare. It's 3,000 pages. But they get the whole Constitution in just this little book. There's 7 articles called chapters. 7 chapters. They call them articles. Each one is something different. It pertains to something specific to it. Like Article 1, that deals with Congress, the House and the Senate. Article 2, that establishes the presidency and everything the president can and can't do. And then Article 3, that's the Supreme Court and a little bit about the lower courts. That's it. Those 3 set up the whole friggin' system of government. And it's still in just this little pamphlet. There's 4 more articles, right? And each one of the other articles, they got 3 of them that fit on a page and a half. 5, 6, and 7 barely take up a page and a half. So don't think this is something you can't understand. Believe me, it's not that hard, and you're going to be able to help your kids a lot. How do I know any of this? I studied our Constitution for 2 years, focused constitutional studies at a really good law school. Funny story I'll tell later, but I actually was able to make my company owner pay for the whole thing. That's the only reason I got it back in my early 20s. I got the company to pay for it. Anyway, it served me well. Like I say, I got it at a great law school, and in the intervening time, I've debated lawyers, I've debated congressmen, I've debated people on the radio. I've done over 150 radio shows coast to coast as a constitutional consultant. I've worked on dozens of campaigns, all federal, as a constitutional consultant, either for senators or, I guess I did work a couple governor races. Anyway, mostly people for the House of Representatives, but it was constitutional consulting. I've never lost a debate. I never had anybody come back and ever prove I told them anything wrong. I've been at this 40 years. Everything I tell you, I can back up. I can show you where the information comes from. Like I say, it's not complicated. Don't let people convince you that it is. Like I said, there's It's important that your family knows when they're being lied to, because listen to these 4 things. These are the 4 most common lies I could think of at the moment about our Constitution that most people believe, and they're all lies. Number 1, they tell you impeachment is the only way to remove a congressman, a judge, or a president, right? Impeachment. That's the only way. Absolute lie. That's the only way the government can do it. That's the only way one branch of government can remove someone from another branch, is through impeachment. And the truth is, that almost never works. It's almost always a waste of time. It's overblown. They make a big deal out of it. They don't want us to know there's another way. Number 2, judges are appointed for life. No, they aren't. That's in Article 3. Judges are appointed during good behavior. That's why they have to take an oath of office. You're supposed to be able to throw them out. We can throw them out. The people can do it. Congress can do it. Congress actually has the responsibility of doing it, but they don't do their job. We've got all these bad judges because Congress doesn't do their job. It's their job. People say, well, the Supreme Court needs to rein in these judges. The Supreme Court can come down on them for it. Congress can completely close that court. That's in Article 1. Another thing that we hear about is the parties. We've got a 2-party system, and we're stuck with it. The parties are in there, and there's nothing we can do to get rid of them now. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Parties are never even mentioned in our Constitution. Our founders hated them so much. They knew the dangers of them. They wanted people to really be aware of the fact that parties are not government. It's these little clubs that they use to get together and try to take over government, okay? George Washington hated them so much that he said parties, those vile entities that seek to grow power and become government unto themselves. Boy, did he nail that or what? Seek to grow power, become government unto themselves. They're not serving us. Who are they serving? We all know this. They built this money system, man, where the people who donate, who have the influence, who have their ears, who can return favors, these people have more power than the voters. And that's all wrong, but that's what happens when people forget the Constitution or aren't able to learn it in the first place. That's why it's important that everyone learns as much about it as possible. Like I say, I'm just going to deliver it probably 3 or 4 bites here in different episodes. And we're not going to get into a bunch of long, geeky stuff. That's not even necessary. But the truth is, it's just those 7 little articles, the 7 little chapters. Now you hear him talk about section this and clause that. It's no big deal. If you look at the Constitution, okay, you've got the article. That's the chapter. Section is just little chapters in the chapter, right? And when they say clause 1, clause 2, they make it sound real official. There's a couple radio hosts that do that. Well, excuse me, if you look at Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3, makes it sound like they know what they're talking about. Now they might as well just give the damn page number, okay? That's just snob crap to make it look like they're some kind of super scholar. They're not. Article 1 is the chapter. The little section in the chapter, that's the section. The clause is just the little paragraphs. It's all divided up like Bible verses, okay? Look at it that way. The whole thing's the Bible. That's the Constitution. That's the cross-reference from religion to government, okay? You've got the books of the Bible. That's your articles. You got the verse, the chapters of the books. That's your sections. The verse, that's your clauses, okay? It's the same thing. Everyone understands it with the Bible. It's just the address of the words. and it makes it real easy to find your way around. All of the powers the government has are listed in these sections. It's called the enumerated powers, and all that means is they wrote them down, they put a number on it, okay? It's codified, it's written down. This is what they can do. It's assigned directly to them. That's enumeration, okay? Call it assigned powers. Forget the word enumerated. It's assigned powers, okay? So, for instance, the enumerated powers of Congress. Article 1 covers Congress, right? Okay, so Article 1 now, which chapter? Go to Section 8, okay? Article 1, Section 8. That's where they talk about the enumerated powers, the assigned powers for Congress. There's a list in there. Google it. It'll surprise you, because when you look at everything that these people do, everything they stick their noses into, you get back to looking at that list, it's like, wait a minute. How do they give themselves that power if this is the list? That's when realizations start to hit. You start to realize how far out of control these guys have gotten. Go through the sections. The president has enumerated powers, assigned powers, powers that he can do. The president's actually got more. You know, there's another lie. They say that they're separate but equal branches of government. That's not true. That's not true at all. They wanted the courts to be weaker. That's the Article 3, the court system, okay? They wanted the Article 3 courts, that Supreme Court and everybody else, they wanted them weaker than the rest, because otherwise, if they can tell you what the law is, and they can decide whether or not you broke it, and they can come after you and pull you out of your house, you're in real trouble. You can wind up with just 8 or 9 people like our Supreme Court that could have squads everywhere coming to get you, like the dictators do, like a lot of governments have done in the past, like some do today, even today all over the world. That's why it's important that people know the limitations of government. You know, over in England even, people think of England as being a lot like us. They got some guys that they just went out, grabbed them and locked them up because they didn't like what they were saying. It's kind of the same thing that happened with the January 6th people here. A lot of them people didn't even do anything, but government had overstepped the power. They went beyond the Constitution. People let them because not enough people know about the Constitution. This can happen again. We've got to make sure it stops and never happens again. Thank God we got a different president in there, and he fixed it. But there was people in there for a long time without ever even being charged. You know, if we don't have our Constitution, this is something that is important. Your kids and grandkids need to know this. If we didn't have the Constitution, they'd be able to come into your house and grab you, haul you away, or grab you, take your property, take your guns, whatever, without a warrant, and they could take you away. It can't happen in America because of the Constitution, our Constitution. It happens all over the world every day. It happens in a lot of European countries in various forms. They can't do it here because of our Constitution. They've got to have a warrant. That warrant, that's demanded by the Constitution. They can't just come get you. These rights are very, very important. I'm not going to go into a lot of the weeds right now, talking about what you get from the 4th Amendment, the protections you get from the 6th. I'd like for people, if you're getting anything out of this, please like, share, and subscribe, because that's really what the lifeblood of all this stuff is about. But I'm not going to go into the weeds on every one of these and make it confusing. The important thing is, the takeaway right now, the Constitution is really a very simple document. There's 7 articles. The articles are broke up into sections. The sections have little paragraphs called clauses. That's all there is to it. It's just a little bitty skinny book. The rest of it is all the crap that the lawyers have done with it. However, we do have the Bill of Rights. That's the 10 Amendments. They were not in the Constitution. When they wrote the Constitution, they argued about that. They fought over it for months. I mean, they had knockdown dragouts. And they started out with like 16 different things that they wanted in the Bill of Rights. Those guys got so tired of arguing, they had it whittled down to 10. They said, just pass it. They didn't even want to give us a Bill of Rights because they thought the Constitution clearly showed the rights that we had. But the people at the time, we're talking back in 1789, they'd just come out of a damn war. They'd whipped the most powerful army on the planet. These people were not going to take a new constitution that didn't protect them. So they didn't want to have to do it again, but they were ready. They didn't want to have to. So they demanded a Bill of Rights. They refused to accept the Constitution without a Bill of Rights. So Congress had to go back and work all over again. They go back there and they argue and they get the Bill of Rights hammered out. Turn it back over. Well, then the people voted to accept it. That's the first 10 amendments. So here we had the Constitution, and before the Constitution even fired up, before it was accepted and put into place, they were already forced to change it. It's a system that can be repaired as you go. It's not a living, breathing document. It's a system that can have bricks put into the wall. You can build on it, but it takes a while, and there's a construction crew involved, and you've got to have everyone on board because you got to have 38 states approve of an amendment before it can be added. The first 10 was everybody, the 13 colonies. They wanted our Bill of Rights. There's now 27 amendments. There's been 17 more added since then. And that's all. In about 240 years, they've only added 17 more because it's hard to do. You don't tinker around under the hood without really having your ducks in a row. But people don't have the knowledge that they used to because we got so many distractions in life. Just know, if your kids and grandkids don't know the basics, they'll accept the lies like judges are appointed for life. Impeachment's the only way to remove people. That's a lie. All we can do is vote. We're just weak citizens. That's a lie. There's a lot more. You know, voting is the least you can do. Our founders never guessed that Americans would just sit on their asses between elections, run out and vote, and then pat themselves on the back. God, no. I mean, why have a Bill of Rights if that's all you do? We got a two-party system. We're stuck with it. Another lie. Don't let your kids believe these lies. Because the only reason these lies exist is so that they can be used to control people. They convince people that we're stuck with these two parties. These two parties get away with murder, literally murder. There's been people killed. Look at the JFK files, for God's sake. A president murdered. 60 years later, they say, oh, well, you know, there was more than one gunman. Well, of course there was. But that's what happens when you've got two parties and they agree on something, right? When they agree to cover something up. That's why our founders didn't make it a two-party system. That's why our founders never said impeachment is the only way to remove an official. It's the only way the government can. That is why they say there's a system of checks and balances. The judicial system can rule against something Congress did. They can say, the Supreme Court can say, the president violated the Constitution. Well, now we've got these little pissant judges out in the middle. You know, some guy from Pisgah that nobody ever heard of that's got an ego trip going and a hate Trump syndrome going. And he comes out and says, well, I think he violated my opinion. He hurt my feelings, so I'm going to say it's the Constitution, and I just made myself a world power. Okay, throw all that away. The court's going to get to that. That's another subject because that should all get destroyed. If it doesn't, we'll get back to that later. But the cross checks, the court can overrule Congress and say that violates the Constitution. But Congress can come back with a loophole that they create so it doesn't violate it anymore. They can rewrite the rule in a different way, and that's been done. That's really pretty common. Now, the court doesn't have any power. That's what people don't see. Well, you've got to follow the court. Andrew Jackson, when he was president, he ran into that. Supreme Court told him, no, you have to stop. You cannot do that. And he said, that's your ruling? Come enforce it. What are they going to do? Waddle out there in their black robes and hit them with the little gavel? No. Hell no. They don't have any enforcement power. There are no Supreme Court cops. The president can do like Biden did and just ignore the Supreme Court. That's for the people to decide if that's acceptable. At that point, the people blew their opportunity to react because Biden started forgiving all those student loans. There was a lot that people could have done, but right now people don't know enough about our Constitution. They think you have to accept that, and you don't. We are in charge. We own and control this government. Every official in the government only serves at our pleasure. Yes, they're elected. That doesn't mean they own that job. We own that job. We own that Congress. We own that White House. We own the court. We paid for their damn robes, okay? We own it. Our Constitution says what they can and can't do. If we don't like the way they're doing it, we can throw them the hell out. And people will say, here's another thing. Before we quit, people will say, where is that written in the Constitution? We have that right. It isn't. The Constitution is not there to give us our rights. Our rights are natural law. They're God-given. We are born with them. Government can only take them away. That's why in the Bill of Rights, they don't give us the right to free speech. We already had it. It confirms that we've got that right. It doesn't give us the right to assemble, the right to have a free press. It says we've already got those rights and the government cannot infringe on them. Our Constitution does not give us rights. We're already got them. We are free people born under God in a free planet. Government can only take it away. And they will if people quit paying attention. I'm going to go ahead and stop right here. I hope you like this enough that you're curious about more, because there is a lot more, but I'm just not going to go into the weeds on every one of these episodes. But we own and control this government. As the people, we have more power than all of them. They only serve there while we let them. And our Constitution is there to make sure that is always true. But nobody tells us that. Because they've all got agendas. I can prove it. It's right there in the documents. Read it yourself. If you've got questions about anything at all, send them to me. There's the email in the description. You can comment, ask your questions, because we look at them and we'll answer. I'll cover any topics you want. But right now, it's important that people learn this Constitution. It's important that you're able to tell your kids and grandkids. That's really doing your service to them. You know, people teach them to pray. They teach them about God. They teach them how to be decent people. Teach them how to be an effective patriot. Teach them how to defend their own rights. Teach them to have the strength a citizen needs in a free republic. If you don't give them the knowledge that gives them the strength, they are not going to have it. And you're leaving that kid short in a tough world. We've seen what happens when people don't exercise their rights. We just went through this stuff with a mumbling, stumbling president that gets led around by a guy in an Easter Bunny costume because people didn't use their rights and get up and take care of business when it mattered. And look at everything that happened to us. Almost completely lost the country. We're still not out of the woods. So send us your questions. Be happy to cover any topic you want related to the Constitution, but I'm going to have another episode here going in a little deeper, but that is the basics. Please like and subscribe. Here's some more topics that we're going to be covering soon. We want to be all about what they don't say, because there's just too much that isn't said by media, lawmakers, judges, lawyers, and people behind microphones. Please like, subscribe, share. Let me hear from you. And may God continue to bless our country.